Well, hello to you all. In yesterday's video, Phil spoke to us all about Jesus healing the blind and these wonderful stories of Jesus healing and helping the oppressed are perhaps stories we're all more familiar with. However, in this video, we're going to be looking at Jesus helping someone who would be considered more of an oppressor. It's a story told in Luke 19:1 about a tax collector called Zacchaeus. Let's read. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." Now we learn from the text that Zacchaeus was a hated tax collector. In fact, the text says he was a chief tax collector, one of the Jews' own, just like the Apostle Matthew, who had both decided at different times to collaborate with the hated Romans in the collection of taxes, and we read in the case of Zacchaeus, this has made him rich in the process. Yes, he was now seen as a traitor and an oppressor in his own right. Yet how did Jesus see him, and how did Jesus respond to him? Well, before we look at that answer, we'll first read that Zacchaeus was unable to push through the crowd as he was small in stature. But pushing through a crowd would have been risky in any event due to the fact he was so despised as an individual that he would have risked a personal attack. So we read that he ran up ahead and climbed a tree. Now what happens next changes Zacchaeus' life forever. As to his amazement, Jesus fixes his gaze upon him and calls him by name. "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." Wow, can you imagine this? What must have been going through Zacchaeus' mind at this point? Perhaps he was thinking, "Oh, well, I heard he was the promised Messiah. He must be, as he knows my name. And not only that, he wants to stay at my house, even though I'm a hated tax collector." No wonder he received him gladly, or as it says in the King James Version, joyfully. You can imagine the feeling of acceptance and love that washed over Zacchaeus in that moment. He now knew who he was speaking to as he called Jesus Lord, and the transformation that followed was instant. All of a sudden, this man who had chosen a life of money at the expense of being hated by his own people was telling Jesus, "I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I've cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." What a transformation. And Jesus has of course continued to do this ever since. How many people have turned away from the empty pursuits of money and power, fame, addictions and wrong sexual desires, transformed into a new life in Christ? But what did this move of compassion and love towards Zacchaeus do for Jesus in that moment? Well, Jesus did not come to win any popularity contest, as we know, and this move made the crowd grumble. He's gone to be the guest of a sinner. For Jesus, this was an act that showed an example of costly love. It was going to hurt Jesus and his immediate popularity with the crowd to love Zacchaeus, but he was prepared to do it all the same. So what lessons can we learn for ourselves today from this passage? Well, as we already stated, Jesus is in the transformation business, and many of us are living examples of this today. I know I am. But we also learn that we are called to a costly form of love. Now this may take many different forms in our life. Perhaps it's extending love to the person in work that everyone seems to hate. Perhaps it's making a stand for Jesus on a given subject that's going to make you unpopular from a worldly perspective. Perhaps it's helping that person you know will not pay you back or appreciate the help you give them, but you know that Jesus would want you to do it. And we should do all these things and more, as in Jesus we have a great example of what it means to show a costly form of love.